Welcome to Making It with Terry Wollman, the show that explores the secrets, successes, and strategies for making it in the music biz. And now, here's your host, Terry Wollman.
Welcome to Making It, presented to you by Fireside. I'm your host, Terry Wollman. I'm excited to tell you my guest today is writer, actor, director, Oshun-Priestess, Rain Pryor. I appreciate you joining us every week, and I'd like to share my intention that inspires this podcast. Time passes quickly, and I've learned that we should do what's in our hearts and do it well without apologies or excuses. I encourage you to create your life and art in your own unique way and express your artistry with joy and abandon. Be willing to work uncompromisingly for what you believe in. Success will have a better chance of finding you when you live your life with integrity, focus, and passion. Be selfish with your discipline and selfless in your performance. And don't forget to have fun along the way. If you're joining us in our live audience today, we'll be inviting questions and comments during the second half of our show, so make it count. Hi, Rain. You can unmute your mic before I read your bio.
Hello.
Hello. It's great to see you. I saw you nodding and smiling with my introduction, so I think we're in alignment on that.
I think so. Yeah.
Let me tell all of our guests that are in the audience today and in our virtual audience a little bit about you if they don't already know. And then we'll start our conversation. The daughter of legendary comedian Richard Pryor, Rain Pryor made a name for herself with recurring roles on the beloved 80s sitcom Head of the Class and the popular Showtime series Rude Awakening. Rain is an award-winning writer, director, author, singer, and actress whose work often explores her Jewish and African-American roots. She's also a committed advocate for MS research, a Cornell-certified DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion facilitator, a breast cancer survivor warrior, mother, wife, and most recently has added the title of priestess to her forever evolving journey in discovery of self. Rain Pryor, welcome to Making It.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Excited to see you. And also, Lisa, welcome to the show, and welcome to all of our virtual audience guests. We see you, and we're happy that you're here with us. Lisa, you with us?
I am with you. Can you hear
Great.
me?
I can. I know you're traveling.
I'm getting some freezing. Yeah, I am traveling, but I am so excited to see Rain. I didn't even know she was DEI certified, but it's so funny. I feel like I lost track of her for a minute. So when you said you were interviewing her, I was like, we found her, like really. But thank you, and I'm excited and I'm here.
Well, you're about to get reconnected. By the way, we also have a TV producer in the audience, Eileen King, who's a friend, but who also was excited about the show, and we collaborated on researching for this episode. So Eileen, thank you. I see you there. Thanks for your help on this. So let's start with a personal quote from your solo show. I'm Black and Jewish, which means I'm proud, but yet I feel so guilty about it. I love that you said that. I'm Jewish. I'm not Black. I'm married into a Black family, so I can relate somewhat. But I wanted to ask you and preface by saying you were born in Los Angeles. Your dad was a comedian and an actor and a writer like yourself. Your mom, Shelley Arbonis, was a go-go dancer and also became an astronomer and has awards from NASA. We'll talk about both of your parents in a minute. And you were also raised with your Jewish maternal grandparents in the mix. So do you think you were destined to have a sense of humor? Were you born funny or?
It's either sense of humor or depression.
Well, both.
Both, right. So I think, plus both my families were in entertainment. So you had my father, but then my mom's side of the family, my grandfather was Danny Kaye's manager for 30 years.
I saw that.
So I didn't know anything else. It wasn't like someone said, go be a doctor or a lawyer, Ray, so you can make some money in life. You know?
Right.
Like, you're an artist. That's what you're going to be. So yeah, here I am.
So I know there was a lot of drama in growing up in your household, but I would imagine there was a lot of laughter.
There was tons of laughter. I mean, I have very silly, ridiculous family and parents. They were larger than life even at home.
Mm-hmm.
Dad was a jokester, and I mean, not like he ever did pranks. He just played characters around the house, and we would join in, and we would have music showtime, or like show and tell time, where you played music and songs or whatever it was that you wanted to do. And then my mom was the same way. My mom was an actress and a dancer, and so here we are rushing to dance classes, at Joe Tremaine's dance studio, or
Right.
elsewhere, and taking classes, and then going to improv classes, because she did improvisation as well, and surrounded with all these talented people, from Andy Kaufman to Taylor Negron to Elaine Boozler. Like, that was Robin Williams. Like, that was, our household was filled with these characters that I didn't, by the way, never saw them as who they were. I saw them as my mom's friends.
Right.
So, but that was the world that we lived in. And my grandparents were the same way. It was like cocktail parties, and, people are singing, or pianos being played. There was always something of that.
And were your siblings as enthusiastic about going to dance class and taking voice lessons and acting and everything back then?
So for me, with Shelley, I'm the only child of Shelley. So
Got
my
it.
dad had multiple wives, and so there's 6 of us all together as the kids. So when we hung out, I think our thing was like, okay, do we get to go to the beach with Dad today? Like, where are we going to all hang out? Kind of, are we swimming? Are we doing, like, our favorite thing to do when the siblings, me, my brother and sister, would get together, because we're the oldest in the family, would be to reenact the Twilight Zone movies and marathon that were on TV. So we'd be like, okay, who's doing the pool one today? Who's doing this one? Who's doing, the one with she has the pig face? Like, that was it was always an adventure, always something that we did naturally. It was never performative, if that makes sense. Like, it was
Right.
just part of
It does.
Yeah.
So were you more Twilight Zone or Outer Limits kind of a girl growing up?
Twilight Zone. Like, I
Me
know
too.
a lot of them pretty much by heart, which is
Yeah.
why we enacted them at home. Yeah.
I think it's kind of wonderful that since you were the only daughter to your mom, you've passed on that lineage or tradition in your family with having a daughter as well.
Absolutely. And she's musical. She plays, I mean, she taught herself how to play ukulele and to sing, and she's good at it. And she's an artist, a visual artist, and it's beautiful. Like, she just got accepted into the prestigious art school here for high school. And so these are exciting times when you see kind of how generationally you pass things on that are really positive to your children. And I look at Lotus and I think, wow, this is the better version of anything I could ever be. So how do I give her all the tools that she'll need to be her own beautiful, successful self, no matter what path she decides to go down?
It's nice to hear you say that. It reminds me, there was a friend of mine who is a dad, and he was describing being a dad, that the most important thing about it, the whole idea was to create a better version of himself.
Right.
That experience that he came into that understanding or that perspective after he became a dad.
I came into it, I think, before I became a parent, that I knew my mission was, I wanted to give her, it's not like narcissism in terms of I want her to be me. I wanted her to have a better life than I had. I wanted her to be fulfilled with anything that she needs, the tools that she needs to grow and to flourish and to be really present. And I made hard choices in order to do that, which I'm, sitting here grateful for, because I look at her and the fine young lady that she's becoming. So I'm like, okay, I did my job.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of those hard choices was making a decision to move out of the epicenter, or one of the epicenters of the entertainment industry.
Absolutely. It was huge.
How did you choose where you moved to? How did that come about?
I just had 2 friends that lived in Baltimore. But so it started with my 2 friends that lived here, and then I was taking a plane ride to, I believe it was Atlanta, maybe, which was strange. And I was reading Octavia Butler, who's a Black science fiction writer, and I was reading her book Kindred. and it talked a lot about Maryland and Baltimore. And so I had this weird connective love to a place I had never really been.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got asked to perform at Morgan State University. And so I went, and it was during the winter and there was snow on the ground, and it just seemed magical and all the things. And I decided right when my dad passed, like, it's time to get out of here. I don't need to be here because I'm defined by the thing that I do. Um, I wanted to be defined by who I was as a person and have a life. And I knew for myself, I couldn't find it in, Los Angeles. And I definitely found what I wanted here in Baltimore, and I love it.
Good move. Well, a good move in following your intuition,
Right.
which is something, yeah, then we're getting applause on that. The intuition has been something that has sort of propelled you through your life.
Yes.
I know that everything that I know about you, it's been sort of a constant theme, to follow your heart and your spirit. And before I ask you this, you mentioned your dad and when your dad had passed. I know the last couple of years of his life were really challenging,
Mm-hmm.
in a different way because of him having MS and having physical difficulties and you being there. Um, did you feel a sense of completion with him? Were you in a good place when your dad died?
I was in a good place, meaning that I feel our relationship was, we completed a cycle.
Okay.
Um, however, of course, when a parent dies and you want to save them from themselves or from life, I think that was the harder part for me. But I
Mm-hmm.
got to learn a lot about letting go and a lot about learning how to break my own chains, my own cyclical, cycle that we go through as children of those types of parents. And when I say those types of parents, my larger than life,
Mm-hmm.
had their own stuff, their addictions and all that. And how do you find yourself to be your own person in all of that? And so
Mm-hmm.
it was a lot of growing up I had to do even after he passed, and I was already in my 30s. But there was a growing process that had to take place, and I don't think I would have found that had I stayed in
Mm.
California.
Right.
So
And your journey has been really magnificent lately. Even more so, you've bumped it up another couple of notches, and I just want to jump in and talk about that, and then we can talk about your art and the fact that you're a jazz singer and an actor and a writer and a director, and we will weave that into our conversation today. But I want to start it by saying you describe yourself as a Black Jew who lights Shabbat candles and observes the holidays in Yortzeit. You did with your dad
mhm.
and grandfather. There's a quote of yours. I think spirituality is a very private and individual experience. And I think that combination with my Judaism makes me who I am. You have just broadened that to a whole nother level
Yes.
by going to Africa
Mhm.
and then pretty quickly after um, going to Cannes to uh, to a film festival and
Right.
for a new movie that you're involved in and so let's start with the more interesting part of that to both of us, which is your Africa journey and everything that is happening right now as a continuation of your personal spiritual and in this world journey as well.
Well, I my whole when spirit, you can spirit energy, whatever speaks to you. And for years, I knew that part of my creativity is about bringing almost like these marginalized voices out and into the world. And that's why I created Fried Chicken and Latkes, because
Hmm.
it's about growing up being Black and Jewish. And I wanted to show a different perspective that maybe some people didn't know about. And then I started to study, which is very interesting, over the last 13, now coming up on 14 years, Ifa, which is a form of African, a spiritual movement that dates even before Christianity and even before Islam.
Is
And
it one of, excuse me, is it one of the 10 largest religions in the world?
well, it's funny. Ifa is not. It's not. It should be one of
Okay.
the 10
Or,
large. It's indigenous. They're fighting now to make it a recognized religion that has been around since before all these
Christ.
other
Yeah.
things. Yeah. And so part of my journey was that I really and because I created a whole series around this, I believe when you write something, you really should know about what you're writing.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted a chance to go to the continent and experience, especially in Nigeria, Yoruba land, Ifa tradition and the culture that's around it. I was lucky enough through Facebook, believe it or not, to actually find the guy who was the next in succession to become the Obanili Ifa, which means he oversees all of Ifa all over the world. And there's only two, the guy who initiated him and now him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the first African American to ever be in it. And to go to Africa, to the continent, one, as a Black woman, was the most beautiful experience because for the first time in my life, I was recognized as Rain, not as the daughter of someone who was famous, not
Sure.
that, oh, she's been on some TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
People saw me and they resonated with me. They didn't
Right.
care. They didn't
Right.
know. They didn't have the shows I was on or know who my dad was. So it became this really like beautiful, felt like home experience, and I made family there because the one things I learned too about Nigerians, when they say you're my family, they mean it. So I became part of this prestigious family of actually kings and queens and princesses. And as I was there, they must have seen some more stuff in me as my Oba already does. And I knew that I would at some point be initiated into Oshun, but I didn't know when or how it would come about. And while there, Oba Egbai Edu said to me, "You need to be initiated as soon as possible, and also um, as well into Obatala." I did not do Obatala yet, which is another Orisha. So there's about 256 Orishas, and there's 401 Odus, which are things that get passed on to you, almost like secrets about who you
Mm-hmm.
are and where you're going in life. And they can change as, life changes for you. So I was initiated. So I was in Africa and I was told this information, came home, went to Florida right before I went to Cairns, um, to initiate into Oshun. And it was a very palatable, tangible experience for me. I thought that because I was diagnosed with cancer the year before, breast cancer, and beat it. So I thought like that was the life-changing moment in my life because I realized then the stuff didn't matter. Stuff
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter. Let's live,
Right.
you know? And here I am constantly in this thing that I want to live life and I want to tell these what I think are beautiful stories. And so and part of that is, like I said, you immerse yourself in a culture, immerse yourself in in a in the people and in the traditions, and you can tell that story better. And then we went to Cairns. So I was initiated into Oshun. I went to Cairns, and for the first time in my life, like I've never had my hair, I think, this short. I've had it short before, but I was younger.
Right.
I have always been self-conscious about myself, my face, my features, because I'm not symmetrical. It's not
Mm-hmm.
perfect. And for the first time, I called home just to say, oh my God, people see me. Like all of a sudden people were like, stopped me and they're like, I just have to tell you, you're stunning. That's never happened to me before.
Wow. That's
So it was,
fantastic.
and for me, for someone who grew up with things like, oh, you're not pretty enough. If only you
Right.
looked like so and so. If you didn't look like your dad, you would la la la. So I
Right.
had a lot of issues with that. And here I am, 52 years old, and people are stopping me who don't know me, again, to just talk about my beauty. And then I realized that's part of what my initiation was about. It's part of the Orisha that I carry. And what was great is I get to let that ego part of me go, that part of me that needed that, because I understand that's what I'm emanating is that part of who she is
Right.
into the world. And that sense of peace, that sense of I know who I am. At 52, it took me to really know and accept this person sitting right here in all of it, and to understand how important our energy and communication are with one another. That what we speak, which they call ashe, that energy is so, it's so clear. Like when we talk about, if you're a Christian, you talk about the word in the Bible or whatever it is that you might believe, the word, there's power and energy in that. And to be really mindful and thoughtful on how we talk about ourselves, how we, if we talk about someone else, how we talk about them. And yeah, so it was a very profound experience.
Right. The power and the intention of words and in words.
Yeah.
So a lot of this, this sort of walkabout that you did,
Yeah.
going to the homeland or one of your homelands, there was a lot of internal change, but of course the external change, shaving your head, is, I mean, it sort of, it just shatters I think the idea of who you think you are.
Absolutely.
When you start taking away some of those things, your beautiful hair that you had and can have again if you want to, and
you're faced with yourself. You're
right.
faced with that mirror image of this, and you're vulnerable. And that's, some of my favorite people like Brene Brown, all that, talk about vulnerability and how important that is. And that stuff to me really holds weight, because I think and that's what having cancer taught me, was to be vulnerable, to let people know where I was at, because I didn't care anymore about what you thought of me. So that started this, propulsion, and that brought me in, Oba, Fayese, and all this to create this Rain that's sitting here having this, interview with you.
We had talked about this before, but for our audience, you and I have been trying to have this conversation for a while, and just to schedule and busy lives and projects and things like that. But we were both in agreement that this is the perfect time to have this conversation, because of everything, the new, revised, and improved improved version of you is magnificent. You look beautiful. You look powerful. And I'm just so excited for you that all of these things are shifting on a new level. And by the way, so you got the doctors let you know, I believe it was 4 months ago, that you were cancer free.
Yes. Whew, that's such a feeling.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That was a major, okay, good. We're good.
Yeah.
And so, and again, when you hear that, you're happy, and you still do the things that you were doing that keeps you grounded and good, So that's what I feel like. All that opened up doors to be able to then, make it so that I could go to Nigeria and then go to Cannes, and working with the people that I get to work with right now. I don't take it for granted.
Did you ever?
I think I did when I was younger. I think you do, because,
because you were around wealth and excess, or
I think both.
Success or
wealth, excess. And I never understood the failure. I never understood that things come to an end. Like, here I am, 19 years old, on a hit TV series, making lots of money. I didn't know, save it, put it in the bank, because it's supposed to keep coming, right?
Right.
Things you don't realize till you're older and you have a family.
Sure.
Like, oh no, bills have to be paid. There's a lot of naivete, believe it or not, that I had, because I probably thought somewhere in me I'm entitled to be like daddy, or to be like the grandparents, and it's just going to be easy breezy, and then oh no, this takes work.
Yeah. The more traditional version of being in the arts, which is a roller coaster. It's not just a straight ascent into nonstop success.
It's not. And and finding new ways to be creative
and to express your art
yeah
and your point of view.
absolutely. And that's exciting, and that enriches my life, and hopefully enriches others as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't see how you couldn't have had that point of view in where and how and when you grew up. I mean, I remember seeing you on the Tonight Show with your dad when you were a teenager, and
Right.
you know, I mean, just that alone, that's kind of it's incredible. Yeah, and you also know, being a performer, that getting that much energy and attention is in some ways unnatural.
It is. But you know what? It's funny that you say that, because the same thing happens when you're initiated. So
Ah,
it's the same energy download, which they call, like I said, it's called the ashe. So you're receiving so much ashe, and you're in the middle of it, and it whirls around you and it fills you up. And then the whole idea is almost like, you know, um, Chinese masters learning how to move with the yin and yang, learning how to control that that energy so that you can be more of service, and
mm-hmm,
understand that it also is never about you. Like, the thing people are attracted to when they see celebrity, like someone like my father, wasn't so much it was him, it was the energy that he emits by doing the thing that he was meant to do,
mm-hmm,
you know. And
mm-hmm.
then you realize that when you watch a movie, and a young person goes, oh my god, that's the love of my life, or whatever, that what you're feeling is that energy that character or that person is just giving off in the moment. It doesn't mean that's who they are,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. And so the idea of life to me is that we're working on building that for ourselves and containing it for ourselves, so that I can be of service to others while I'm doing this, and not make it about ego, which
Right,
is difficult because we're human. So we're going
right.
to, it's going
Mm-hmm,
to happen. And then you put yourself back in check and realize
mm-hmm.
it wasn't me.
Well, and I mean, for me, and I think for you, from what I'm hearing you say, one way of kind of checking yourself, or bringing yourself back to center and not getting distracted by the ego part of it, is being of service.
Yeah.
Making the world a better place, and being a griot, a storyteller, like
Yeah.
you are, and even more so in this new community that you're in, because you were saying the the elders, they're giving you these stories,
They are
they're
giving me.
passing them on to you.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing too about Ifa that I really love. It's a very much a verbal tradition.
Hmm.
So you can find some things that scholars may have written about, but the real learning of it happens through your communication with your elders, and those above you. Like, yes, I'm an Oshun-Priestess, but I'm in my infancy stage in my priesthood.
Hmm.
You know, and that's exciting, because I'm learning tradition. I'm learning how that Orisha moves, what to do, what not to do, how to be, what not to be, like, so that I can flow within that energy, so that I create the things it is that I wanted to create, and that's when I realized, like, the 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 power of being in your own alignment. When we went and presented at Cannes, and we didn't go with an expectation. It's Cannes. Who pitches a series at Cannes? Nobody. But we were asked to come just talk. That's what we
Right.
just talk,
Hmm.
don't pitch, just talk. And the response we got, and the initial, oh my God, how do we get in? How much do you need? Did it, like, all started to snowball, and you realize, that's what the alignment is, you know,
Yes, yes.
because I've been in those rooms before. I've pitched before and it didn't happen. So why is this any different? And it just is the energy is all.
Hmm.
It was time. That's it.
It sounds very much like martial arts. Like you're saying, you're working with the energy and you're not resisting it. You were moving with it and
Yeah,
allowing it.
right. Very Aikido. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. And jujitsu is like that as well.
See?
Those two forms. Um, so tell everybody about Can and what you were pitching there, because it's a wonderful project.
So we were asked by the people who hold the Pan Afrique pavilion there, Pavilion Afrique, to come and pitch this idea, which is called Ancestors. And it's about a young girl whose father had died 7 years ago. She starts having these dreams about him and gets pulled into the world of, of Ifa, and how she discovers her own power through that to also maybe avenge her father's death. So it's if you took Lovecraft Country and gods, it has that kind of tone, or even some of Black Panther.
Oh yeah, of course.
But what was exciting was doing this talk and talking about my experience of going to Africa, and the reception that we got isn't, again, nothing like I've ever felt before. It was different than a standing ovation at shows I've gotten, because the connection to, thank you for telling this story. Thank you for being brave enough to delve into this African spiritualism, this Ifa, and do justice to Ifa instead of demonizing what people's ideas of it are. And also to show people across the diaspora practicing this form of spirituality in a way that is like, if you have Charmed, is like the other shows where there's, magical principles happening, but they don't look like me.
Right.
And so this show is people who look like me and darker skin, that are bigger than life beings and presence in society, and telling their stories and how they navigate their worlds and our world. And so it's, science fiction and fantasy.
It's fun.
Yeah, it is fun. Yeah, it's fun. It has its drama, and that's what's great, like any hour show would.
Sure. Yeah. Right. Something for everybody.
Yeah.
And they walk away with being entertained, but with
a knowledge.
That's
it's a knowledge. It's like edutainment. There's moments you learn about Africa and the transatlantic slave trade, and then there's moments you learn about Ifa and Christianity and Islam and Payo Mayombe, all the things that we thought were taboo. And we learn this appreciation and hopefully a love for certain things, and then you take it away with you, and hopefully young girls will walk away too feeling empowered about who they are and where they come from.
Right.
And even Baltimore, because it takes place in Baltimore, for Baltimore to have something that's different, that's not The Wire and not We Own the City. No, I mean, and I love those, the people in those series, but to tell something different about a place that you live in, that you found peace in, even with all the chaos around you, so.
I love your Instagram page more than most. And part of the reason is because, and Dr. Lisa, if you don't mind, you can please share the link so everybody can see it. One thing, I want to ask you two things just to start with that. You have a hashtag that's Pryor Wisdom,
yes,
which of course has a double meaning. That I love. And I'm wondering if there was a particular moment of clarity when you came up with that. But also, I want you to talk about your new name that you've been anointed with, and if there's any meaning to it. And I didn't want to butcher it. I'd rather hear those beautiful words come out of your mouth.
So the name that I was given once I received my Orisha, and they say it's on your head because it starts with your head and goes down. Oshun is Oshun Yemi Oriomondun Fayesi. Fayesi is my family lineage that I've come from through Ifa. So, and Oshun Yemi Oriomondun is I'm the mother of children. So, and it just got a head rush because you can feel like when I talk about it,
There's energy to words. There's power.
So the mother of children and my job of what I'm supposed to do is to bring people towards, without proselytizing, towards Ifa, towards finding their their own truth and be nurturing to others as a mother would. So
Mm-hmm.
everyone's considered like my children, whether you're old or young, and it's reciprocal. So it's not what I give to you, what do you get back for me? It's making sure that what I give stays and
Mm-hmm.
nurtures your spirit and your soul, and then then I am on to my next child.
Mm-hmm.
And bringing that into as well, learning how to flow with that inside my home and as a mother, you know, learning even it's changing how I parent differently
I would imagine.
than before. I mean, not saying, but I was before, like I was that mom. Get in the house, da-da-da-da, Anthony, like we all do. And now I'm like, oh, okay, well, what do you think the consequence should be for that? Because
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't really cool. It's like it's funny
Right.
how it starts to shift.
Mm-hmm.
And like you can get frustrated with people, but it's frustration's different because then you're always checking yourself. Am I frustrated or am I feeling like you just didn't listen to me? Like what is the real, do you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Were
So
you given? I'm curious how Lotus is responding to that kind of interaction with you. I would imagine she's enjoying it and maybe thinks her mom's a little weird at times, but she might have already right.
a long time ago.
Well, yeah, because you're this beautiful, complex artist, with a lot to say, and but with your grandparents
Yes.
and your mom and dad, but particularly having the elders in the house, did you get any of that kind of? I did coming up, like I got the get in the house and the yelling and all the
Oh, I got
insanity,
all that.
but I also got the well. What do you
I get
think?
truth, right.
Yeah, what do you think you did wrong? Or
Right.
how that affected that person. Yeah.
I didn't get the what did you think you did wrong in our household? It was
Okay.
like, you did it wrong. Now fix it. But what I got from having generational living, like, even my father, which a lot of people don't know, always had his grandmother around or his uncles or the aunts, and
Mhm,
the family was always around more so than celebrities.
mhm,
Rarely did celebrities come over. Um, and if they did, it was for an afternoon, maybe an evening, and they left. But when it came from my grandparents, they really were like my parents to me.
yeah.
And so it was tough love, it was do your homework, eat your vegetables, wash the dishes, clean your room, then you can go outside and, play with your friends, but be home at this time and be sure you have a quarter in your pocket so you can use the payphone if
Mhm.
it's and it's funny because we're living in a different world now, and so my daughter doesn't even get to have that. She doesn't have that luxury that I call it.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's like I have to track her on her phone. We live in Baltimore, but what what I got from them, and especially when it came to my Judaism, like I never felt othered by my grandparents. Um, I was always brought in to recognize that I was a Black Jewish girl, and even when I didn't go to Hebrew school, I didn't do the
Mhm.
traditional things, I wasn't bat
Right, I
mitzvah.
was just gonna ask you.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
it didn't matter because my mother wasn't and my aunt wasn't a thing that we did in our family. It
Right.
was like you go to the high holiday services, grandpa once in a while, broke out the Torah and then you'd read a
Mhm.
little and then he would talk about it for a second and then put it away because, it's boring, kid, it's bothering him. And then it was like, and it was really about the foods we ate. Like
Right.
that's how we all gathered around. It was like, okay, so how does grandma make her wonderful brisket? Those are the things that I gained, and that everything was again about the energy, right? You put love into your food, it's going to taste good.
Right.
You
Well,
take your time. Yeah.
speaking about energy, and I agree with you, especially, yeah, when, people say, well, you put your foot in it, you also put your heart into it.
That's
When,
right.
yeah, and you can taste that.
Yeah.
You can taste that when you cook for somebody or you go to a restaurant and it's just like,
Mm.
yeah, there's something more going on and it's not just the spices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But you're talking um, not being treated as another
yeah.
from your grandparents, and and we're talking about energy, so this seems to fit into the conversation. Your parents got married 4 years after the Supreme Court case of Loving versus Virginia. Which protected interracial marriages. You were born as a product of an interracial marriage in a tense political climate, a lot of racism going on. And so you said this on Oprah, I'm a product of this thing that everyone was against. And, there was talk about putting you up for adoption in your family. But your mom thought that your birth would contribute to changing America.
Yeah, she really did. She thought I was going to my birth was to start a color revolution. My sister and her mom was also a white Jewish woman, and she grew up in a different era. It's like interesting. A lot of the Black Jews I know that are older than me, they grew up in Jewish households, and one of their parents were, Ashkenazi, usually, European Jew. Their identity is very much in their Judaism. Whereas I grew up in a different generation of Judaism. So it was either you're Black or Jewish, but in my household, I was Black Jewish. Like there was no pulling apart. The othering came from outside in the world that we're living in, and even today I'm part of Mosaic, which is a Mosaic Visions is a multicultural Jewish organization that really supports and enhances Jews of color and their art forms and their voice in the arts, whether it's music, dance, visual art. I'm also a part of JWI, Jewish Women International, which deals with domestic violence and a lot of female centered issues. And all that is to say that we're living in this crazy time, in this crazy world full of angst and blame and
fear,
hate and fear. Yeah. And so the more we see people of different commonalities, that's why I became a diversity, equity, inclusion and got that certification from Cornell because
while you were recovering from cancer.
Yes, while I was recovering from
warrior.
And it's funny, I didn't even see it that way. I just thought,
of course not,
right? But all of that to say that when we find commonality, we can have our differences, but we need to, as a world, we need to find commonality so that we can forge ahead together instead of separate. Separate never works. Separate deteriorates us. And the energy is so fractured right now because it's trying to find its way to this,
Right.
And I, at least in my belief of the world, I believe we'll find it. And right now we're kind of on all the extremes on all sides, and it needs to create that chaos so that it erupts again and, back and I'll be like, how are you? I'm great.
I would like to take a moment now to see if anybody in our virtual audience would like to join the conversation with a question or comment. I see some pretty interesting people in our audience right now. So feel free. If you're interested, just request an invitation. Dr. Lisa will bring you up.
I'm keeping an eye out here to see if somebody raises their hand.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. There, it seems like you have been a priestess, in some ways, hearing the story about, your mom thinking that you were going to change the world.
Yeah.
You seem to have been born a priestess, and you're being anointed now at 52 years old with what you've been headed towards this your whole life.
Yeah.
You came out the gate being funny and anointed to do something with your not just your visibility, but with your life, to be of service.
I think some people, I think you're born with, I want to help people. I want to make the world a better place. And that's all I've ever wanted to do besides performing.
Yeah.
And to do it through what I love to do, which is in this creative, world that that we live in. But I agree that, I mean, and not agreeing from a place of ego, I agree because of my experiences of when I was younger, how people would stop my mom and say stuff about me. Like, oh, your daughter's going to be da da da. And my mom's like, yeah, yeah, whatever. And like, or like when I was pregnant with Lotus, having monks do that, give me herbs and say, your daughter's going to be such and such. And I'm like, okay. And taking herbs I've never heard of before, but they, you know, it's like, because it was like a knowing. You just go, okay, I'm on this path. I don't know how I'm going to get to the place I want to get to, but I know I'm on a path. And I think sometimes we stray, which I have in my life.
You're human.
Yeah. And you don't always listen to your stuff, right? But a part of what I was talking about with a friend, and it's something you said earlier, which I resonated with, which is I said to my friend Nicole Miller, who's a great unpacker of untelling your story, like you know, shape it differently. And one of the things I said to her today was that the thing I missed in my life that I tapped into when I was younger was that little child, that inner child, for some reason, knew what she wanted, had no fear, leaped and jumped and took risks and didn't care. And that's when I was the most successful. And then somehow I allowed the judgment and opinions of others to change who I was and where I wanted to go. And I think that's what drives you off your path. But if you can listen to your inner child, they usually lead you in the right direction.
Let me give you back your own words. These, you know, we spoke about your Instagram page. Your Instagram page it's entertaining, but it's beautiful because they're just sharing your perspective. Things, you're being of service with this platform. Right. And I appreciate it. I enjoy it. Here's something that you've said. In order to create the life you intend, one must be willing to step into their own soul. If you know, then you know. Yeah. The journey has just begun. Yeah. So do you ever go back and read what you wrote? I sometimes go back and read some things that I've written. You don't?
I don't.
I highly recommend it because it might circle you back around to those moments of clarity or point of view that you have.
And isn't that, I mean, that was a nice thing for myself to say. You know,
I've had people say to me in interviews something like that, and I'll go, when did I say that?
Right. And what's so funny about all of that, though, is that a lot of my musings or things that seem like the prior wisdoms come from meditation. So they come after I've, you know, breathe in the morning and listen to my music and, you know, whatever, or I'm in that place, they start to come out. So I have to write them out because they're there, you know.
By the way, is it true? I think I read that every morning as part of your meditation and practice, you write 20 things that you want to, that are important to you or you want to accomplish?
I would write 20 things of gratitude or a list of either a list of gratitude or a list of things that I wanted to do until I learned this other way of honing my energy. So I don't really need to do that anymore, but it's the same practice.
Right.
But it was very beneficial to me to write out what 20 things I wanted to do and was going to do and put it in the I'm finished with it. I am blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
So it's not a to-do list. It's a done list. It's an intention list.
It's an intention list. And to see that every day, and it changes all the time, and you add new things or you take away certain things, you start to get in your own alignment. You know, a lot of the things that I realize, especially going to the continent, I just need to tell you this, is that your Anthony Robbins, Abraham Hicks, all, you know, whatever, Wayne Dry, all of the people and the self-help, even Neville Goddard, who I love, I believe they all at some point have had someone in their lives who were from the continent or on the continent that helped pull this in, because what they are teaching you is some of this incantation, some of the ashe to get your life running on that.
You had said, Rain, that there's a specific amount of ashes and of the other as well, and it reminded me of katas that you learn in martial arts. If it's not just griots sharing stories from their ancestors, there's a specific amount that you are taught, and then you continue to carry on the oral tradition.
Yeah, and you're never done learning. Like even Obanili Ifa, he's not done learning. He's still now learning Obanili Ifa work and the things that come with that, or the incantations that come with that, or the learning that happens from that, because now you're taking care of a nation of people, so to speak.
Right.
And the same thing in being a priestess. Like my work, I will never be done learning. If I'm done learning, then I'm not doing the work. I have to be open to being a student, open to learn and respect for my elders that might share something, even if I've heard it 100 times.
Yeah.
That's the thing, because that's how you are learning it. It is repetitive. You are, I'm just, like I said, I'm at the beginning of this long journey of learning a 401 of these Odus. Part of me will learn it, part of me won't, because I was not raised in Nigeria in the Yoruba language and culture. So I'm literally, it's little pieces that I will, carry on and be able to share more of that as I learn more of it. But it's authentic for me. It's not, shoes I'm going to throw away. I mean, I've been doing this for 13 years and started off with, people, just like when you find a psychic, someone goes, I'm a psychic, and then you realize, okay, they read your Facebook page, it's that kind of thing. So like you'll see a bunch of Ias and Babalaos and say blah 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 blah, and it takes that. I think you can always find your true teacher, your true path, if your intention is pure. And for me, that's what I was able to find, but I went through the road of the other as well. It's like Oba would always say, you got to know the bitter to, cherish the sweet.
Absolutely, which is also I read on your Instagram page. But that's a beautiful saying. I have always loved that point of view. Let's talk about humility and gratitude. And one of the things that brings me, I mean, those are words that you're bringing up in our conversation, and I'm always bringing up in my conversations as well. But your work with MS and comes from a place of gratitude and humility also, and I'm wondering what that means to you.
Look, when my dad was diagnosed with MS, at the first time I was 16 years old, I didn't know much about it. And it wasn't until I was in my later 20s that I decided to do more research and learn more about it. I wanted to help him. My whole idea about learning about MS and all I could, and the research available and what or medications or this or that, came out of a need to save him. I thought somehow if I had this knowledge, I could save him. I could figure out what's wrong. It was that was the mission.
Right.
And what I learned from it was I have a love of science, a love of the research, not just for MS, but in general. Like I made friends with scientists and I made friends with researchers, and I actually have a drawing that I wrote out with the date on it that I, mailed off to like.
I just lost your audio. There you are.
Yeah, someone had called in the middle.
Of course.
And to have this love for knowledge. And so I created, which is funny because they are doing it now. I created this drawing using fiber optics and mapping it out of what I wanted to do that would help someone who had MS or Parkinson's, so that move. And someone was like, oh, we're doing this right now at Hopkins on, the lab mice or whatever it is. And I was like, what? Like, so I just have this desire to, like I said, to learn. And my desire was really to help my dad until I realized that his path was his path, regardless of what I did. And maybe I was just supposed to, again, be in a position where I could help others going through the same situation with their parent. And that's what I realized my purpose for it was. Yeah.
That's a really clear purpose and of great value. I think, and this is something personal that I'm going to divulge about you, but you've already given me permission to do that. I would say that a lot of your earlier experiences in life, in a couple, or that you suffered from drug abuse when you were younger. You got clean in 1993, according to Wiki or whatever. Those aren't always accurate.
Go on, Wiki.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. But you also, even as a young girl, had suicide attempts. And so you've really come a long way. I want to just lift you and remind you of the beauty of what you were doing with your life and the power and everything. And it's richer, and you're more able to do it because of where you came from and where we all come from. Our pains.
We're all divine beings.
Yes.
I think we forget we're divine beings, and we're put on the planet, and and all the information that we were given before we got here leaves us purposely, I think, because our job is to find that. Our purpose again. I think it's like we're supposed to forget it when we're kids. Kids have it. If you listen to them, they're always talking to spirit. They're always creating different worlds, and they're wise. They have great wisdom if we stopped and listened. Imagine if we nurtured that, we'd have a bunch of psychic babies, right?
Right.
Indigo children, they call them. But you would have that if we as a society just nurtured that. And I think, like when I look at my past and my childhood, I had a lot of pain and a lot of trauma, and that leads you to want to try different things or see if that works. For me, it's funny that someone would put addiction because I showed up at a 12-step meeting, for many years. But my purpose was to make friends. So I didn't have so much of the addict mind as I had the loneliness, I had the self-deprecation, I had all of those things that I was lacking, that I thought if I joined something else outside of myself, I would find it. And what I did find was a higher power. What I did find was how to act like a human being and have a human experience and to be of service. And so I learned great things from my 12-step journey. And I carry that with me in my life today, although I'm not associated with 12-step, but most of my friends happen to be sober. My reflection of who I am is surrounded by really alive people doing things to create a different and a better world. And that to me, yes, that does allow for growth, but it took trudging the road to get there,
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
Trudging through life. Dr. Lisa, if you or any of our audience members would like to jump in on the conversation, please do right now.
Absolutely. Terry, I don't know how you do this every week. It just gets better. I'm actually sitting in a restaurant with a friend who I don't know which one of you he's more in awe of right now. He's like, oh my God, she's amazing. Oh my God, this man is so centered. He's like back and forth. Rain, I am in love with you.
Oh, love you too.
I feel like I have just listened to a kindred spirit. There are so many similarities. The question I have for you, I had my dad who raised me and my biological dad die within 8 months of each other.
Wow.
And I spent the last week and a half with my bio dad in Baltimore, actually, in the hospital where he was in hospice, because we're from Rockville, Maryland, that part of my family. And I realized after he died, I have learned so much more about him and who he was and the struggles that he had after he died.
Mm.
And it has enriched aspects of my life. And I want to ask, have you had a similar experience after your dad's passing? Just the things that you know now that you didn't know then and how they've impacted you?
You know, I did. I think my awakening involving, my dad's passing was I got to learn about him through the eyes of fans. I know that's
Mm-hmm.
very strange, but even my dad didn't realize how big and massive he was in the world.
Yes.
Uh, and so I got to learn the power. Again, it's the power of the word, the power of his words, how it had impacted other people, what he did for people across the Black, white, Asian, Latino, name it. My dad impacted people because
Mm-hmm.
he spoke truth to power.
Right.
And so I learned so much about the power he had that I don't think I recognize because I'm his kid and he's annoying. You know, can, can he get
Totally
it
understand
together?
that.
Right? Can he get it together? Come on now. And then I realized that his truth became the way I function in the world because I don't know how, like my husband, if I try to hide something, he knows it. My
Mm-hmm.
daughter's the same way. Like I'm not good, which sometimes makes me go, maybe I shouldn't be acting. I'm not good at this thing.
That's funny.
It's not authentic. Like I have to really be in the part. But that's what I learned from him was that there's so much power, even if nobody else is listening in the truth. And
Absolutely.
that's what I learned from him after, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. Now, someone else did. I have Dave, I believe, up here that has a question. So, Dave, if you will unmute, you can use the bars in the lower left and unmute. And if you have a question or a comment for Rain, please share.
Thank you very much.
You're
Hi,
welcome.
Terry. Hi, Rain.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for joining our conversation.
I just wanted to, Terry, I've been into multiple shows of yours, and may I just say that number one, here on Fireside in the audience, and number one, every single show that I listen to of yours is just incredible.
Thank you.
I've often thought, oh, I've got to get up and just say what an amazing show this was. But today I really, really, really had to do it. And that is obviously because of your guest. And
Oh,
Rain, to hear
Thank
your
you.
story just of your life and from when from the way that you speak about your father and your mother
oh,
and just people that were your mother's friends and who to everyone else in the world are these two bigger than life figures and bigger than life people. Your father, of course, included. I don't know. I'm going to guess your uncle Gene Wilder. I have no idea. I'm just guessing. But for what was it like? I mean, from obviously coming out of that umbrella, and I mean that in a very positive way, of just all those people and who they were, especially your father, and to become the woman that you obviously are now.
Oshun.
How difficult was that journey for
I don't
yourself?
That's a really good question, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it was difficult. I would say I had my challenges, and just like with someone in the military, you got to climb over that big wall that's there, and you don't know how you're going to get over it because you've never had to really use your upper body strength. And I think that's kind of where my life has been. I've had some, thank you, I've had some challenges in learning to love myself. I've had challenges where you listen too much to the negativity around you. Like I said, being told I was ugly, I wasn't beautiful, I need to have a face job, I need more bigger boobs, I need
Mm-hmm.
this, I need that, and the tear down. And I allowed that to get to me for so long. And but I think there's that little voice in me, and thank God she keeps going. Go ahead, keep going. You know what to do. Trust your intuition, Rain. Trust who you are. And not all the time do you listen to her, but that grew as I got older. It started to grow and to grow and to grow. I remember, and even in creating fried chicken and latkes is such a good example. everyone told me I was crazy to do it. My agency dropped me. They were like, must be on drugs. She's not doing her own thing. This solo show business, it's never going to do anything. Well, that's how I've earned a living for over 18 years. And I haven't had to give commission to an agent because, and then I got one.
Right.
Then I got one
the right one.
who spoke to my I found an agent who speaks my spiritual language and manifests, do you know what I mean? So that I can be who I am with this person. And there's an empowerment that happens. And I think that's because I learned to listen to that guiding voice that was in there, but I had shut her down. And so that's why I say it's more of challenges of things that you go through so that you build yourself to be stronger. And maybe I'm supposed to be this at 52, and I'm okay with that.
While we're waiting for your internet to reconnect itself, I've got 2 other quotes from your Instagram. Don't be afraid to get to know yourself. Trust your power and stay humble enough to always learn. Today, I own my actions, words, and deeds. I love who I am and know exactly what I bring to the table personally and professionally. There is energy in words. I mean, these are not my words. They're words that Rain has written, my guest, but I feel empowered in reading them. I feel excited to share them with you because I would imagine that you are all resonating with some of these words. But
100%. And I
but it
think
feels really
the proof that there's power in them.
Yes.
Because I think anyone who speaks them with authenticity, you're feeling these words as you're speaking them.
Yeah.
So the message in them is going to ring true, no matter where they come from or whose mouth they come out of, or if we just read it on our Instagram,
right.
They're going to speak to us. And that's the beauty of it. I mean, we're sitting here in awe right now, just listening to you read.
They're great. I see them as great moments of clarity when I read these words, when I'm looking at them. I've got 2 more for you, and then hopefully we can get Rain back. I am not here to teach you how to be on my side. You do the work. You go, girl. You see, that's the warrior Rain Pryor right there. Here's another one that speaks to that. I am not living on some plantation. I am my own Black Jewish Ifa woman. Rain, you should be reading this, not me. I do what I want and say what the fuck I want. And if anyone comes at me for being unapologetically me, you better be ready for clapback. You do not own my thoughts and feels. I've never conformed, nor will I conform to fit your plantation narrative. Words of clarity. Yeah, powerful. Powerful. Hi, Rain.
Hello.
And hi, everybody. We are back just to close our conversation because we had a little bit of a storm. Some life happens. A storm rolled in and we lost internet. But that's the beauty of life.
It is the beauty. It is.
So what I was doing while we were having these couple of internet problems and lost you was I read a few more of your quotes, some gems that I just put aside. Mostly I wanted to read them to you so you could hear them. But I shared them with the audience. But the thing that was really interesting was that I really felt empowered by reading these words because we were speaking about the energy of words earlier. You were mentioning that. And I felt energetically some things shifting in me when I was reading a few of the words. Yeah, thank you for that. So I wanted to get to my closing questions. I have 3 that I ask all of my guests, and then you can have closing thoughts. And for anybody who's just jumping on, this is the what we call it, the prologue or the part 2, but it's going to be short and concise. So thanks for coming back. My first question, since this show is called Making It, what does making it mean to you, both personally, of course, and professionally?
Making it personally means every morning that I wake up, every morning that I get the gift to open my eyes and be here yet another day to experience what life has to offer. And making it professionally is showing up in my full authentic self to create the kind of content that I would be proud for my daughter and her friends to see themselves and to recognize themselves in. That's making it to me.
Thank you for that. Is there any part of that also that of wanting to make your grandparents and your mom and dad proud as well?
I think they were proud. I mean, they always told, they were proud. And I mean, I guess that I'm at a place where I don't need them to approve, even if, like, some are here and some aren't. Yeah.
Right. But you already had some of that at a younger age, which is really just beautiful.
I had that a lot from my grandparents and my daddy. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so great. Can you share 3 tips for success that have driven your career?
3 tips for success that have driven my career are: show up on time or early, know what you're going in for, what your job is, work as if you could lose it tomorrow. And
Spoken from experience.
yes, yeah, absolutely. My dad said, as soon as you don't love it, stop. My grandfather always told me, you work just as hard as the guy running the camera, work just as hard as the grip that's, holding the lights and getting the electric going. And yeah, that's how you do it.
Great advice. My final question, and then I will give you closing thoughts. At this point of your life, it's so perfect to ask you this right now because of where you were at and everything that you are shifting into and coming into. At this point of your life, with everything that you know to be true, what would you tell your younger self?
God, with everything I know to be true, what I would tell younger Rain is to trust herself. That every time she has trusted herself, she was right on the mark, and not to worry about what other people say or what other people are thinking of her. That she's special and unique in her own way, and that's her magic.
Great thing to hear when you're little.
Right?
So this has been a beautiful conversation. I thank you for your time.
Thank
It's so
you.
lovely
Likewise.
to
Thank
connect.
you.
Yeah, my absolute pleasure. Any closing words, thoughts, anything more that you'd like to say or share?
I guess what I want to leave your audience with is, when you wake up in the morning, let your first thought be of gratitude. Sometimes the most simplest thing is to wake up and say thank you for another day. And sometimes that's the best anyone can do. And that you live life to the fullest, and stuff does not matter. Stuff does not make your life. How you treat people, how you show up in the world, that's the stuff that matters.
The perfect place to end our conversation. Rain Pryor, what a joy to just have time with you and to have this conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you again to our live audience, our virtual audience, and to all the people who listen. Yes. I think I can speak on behalf of the two of us and Dr. Lisa. We appreciate you joining us. We truly do.
Thank you so much.
And I just encourage everybody to stay safe and stay inspired. And we will see you next week. Rain, thank you so much.
Tune in again next week for another great episode of Making It with Terry Wollman.